House of Nerd Podcast.
Greetings, Nerd Nation. I'm Josh, and I welcome you to the podcast. Grab a cold evergreen goblet of blue milk and make yourself comfortable here at my House of Nerd. Now for tonight's sponsor, are you looking for a game that will get your heart pumping? A game that has twists and turns? A game that makes you want more and more till your heart or your head explodes? Then welcome to the exciting card game of War that pits you against your opponent to win at any cost. The game of War. What is it good for? Well, absolutely nothing. Not a sponsor.
Pretty good.
Exploding heads.
What? I wanted to put a pun on. I was trying to figure out all night how to make War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Fit with something.
Works for me.
Yeah, bud. All right. For today on the podcast, we have Crit and we have John with us, and we are on our final week of the topic of war movies. And this week we are talking about Crit's pick, the 1988 anime movie Grave of the Fireflies, directed by Isao Takahata. And it's the autobiographic story of Akiyuki no Saka. And it tells the story of two siblings and their struggle to survive the last part of World War II and the trials that they have to go through. Let's talk about this movie, guys. And this was my first time. Have you guys both seen this? You guys have both seen this one before too, right?
Yeah, and I told you when we picked it out that I'd have to apologize. So I'm sorry. This is a movie about feels, and you guys picked it out of the three. So
I don't think
I like how you're pushing blame on us on that point.
I'm sharing it equally. Yeah. I put it out there, but you picked it. So we all share blame.
Actually, I thought this was kind of a refreshing reprieve from some of the other movies we're watching. You know, this was about war, but it was, I actually liked the more, kind of tender-hearted part of it, So I don't think there's anything to apologize, bud.
Well, I still think it's one of the better movies out there. I mean, just from the act of storytelling, of course, the artwork, the cinematography, in essence, what they do. I don't know. It's hard to get better than this movie at conveying the emotions that they want you to feel and just kind of really making it so that's hard to kind of look away from the screen.
Yeah, I was definitely pulled into. Before we get further into, did I say that right at the very beginning? Is it considered an anime? What would this be considered?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's an animation from Japan, so
okay.
I don't know if we want to get into like technical definitions, but I don't know if there's necessarily. I mean, it's an animated movie, so that's good enough for me.
Okay, I was wondering if I was using that technically right. So, I got to be honest with you. This movie really drew me in. It was very different from what I was expecting. But
what were you expecting?
I was expecting actually something about war. I mean, like actual like gunfire, like some of the movies we've been watching. And I wasn't expecting kind of this as much of. You said that last week it was going to be feelings and all that stuff, but I wasn't expecting how much feelings and how much of how this was about this one boy and his and his sister and their hardships at the end. You know what I really liked about this, though? I like how it surprised me in the sense that we got to see a kind of the flip side of World War II. We kind of got to see it from the Japan side of it a little bit. And I thought that was very intriguing to kind of see how they were going through, I mean, very much their own hardships. The war was definitely taking a toll on them as well.
Yeah.
It's not something that's talked about as much, at least here. But I thought that was really interesting and stuff. But really good movie. I mean, this is a beautiful movie. The animation is wonderful.
Yeah, and it's a hard movie for me to watch, to be honest.
Why is that?
Because it's the 4-year-old girl
Mhm.
is really what it comes down to. It's like you barely understanding what's going on around you, and you're taking the brunt of these horrible situations. Like it's hard to watch that and imagine, like, what if it was my kid? Because my kid's 5.
Mhm.
I can imagine him a year earlier, just unable to understand fully what's going on and to accept it, because everything else, everything to them is can be so simple, and to see him in the middle of war and to deal with that is just hard to watch. And then, her whole death scene, and the fact that it was, I say realistic death, as realistic as you can get maybe in a cartoon, obviously, but a realistic malnutrition death with the whole hallucinations and weakness and all of that, just where this 4-year-old's lost herself, and that's just so hard to watch, and it's so hard to think about. And then to bring that into the scope of war and what it does to individuals is just, it's really hard to sit through.
It's really hard to see her deteriorate.
Absolutely.
And
I find
him
that
having
hard.
the older brother having like nothing he can really do about it. I mean, he made some mistakes, I think, based on pride when he left that
His
woman
aunts.
that is terrible, her home. But he really doesn't have a whole lot of control over the situation, and he's still a kid himself. So it's not just the 4-year-old that's the tragedy. That's why the opening of that movie hits so hard, like the second time you watch it. Like the first time it's pretty rough, for sure, because it's just like the cheap cost of life, like just hey, here's another one, that type of thing, and how society treated people in that situation, especially kids in that situation.
Yeah.
And then to have him basically in his last moments remembering this, at least that's the way I took it, is that he's remembering all of these events that we're seeing through the movie. That's why he as a ghost is kind of haunting the locations during his memories, and I think it's a really effective storytelling. I mean, I understand where you could look at it and be like, I don't get it, I guess, and maybe not connect with the characters, but I thought they were really empathetic characters, and I really felt for both of them. I really did.
Absolutely. I think they did a fantastic job in showing the foibles of, how old is he? He's 13 or 14?
Maybe, yeah. Somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere around
that,
13 or 14.
yeah,
But they show the foibles of a 13 or 14-year-old boy, making mistakes. And like you said, those mistakes potentially cost the Setsuko her life,
Well, both of
And
them, really.
yeah, both. You're absolutely right. Both of them, because of his pride and of his mistakes. So thinking back to that, and like you said, seeing it the second time and being like, "Oh man, this could have all been so different had they just."
I mean, she was horrible.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
His aunt was absolutely horrible.
A very selfish person. I mean, you would think that she would have.
And resentful. And...
Oh yeah. Instead of looking at these guys as people who are part of her family that she needs to take in and take care of, and treating them like they're her own family, she treats them like they're just parasites. That was absolutely tough to watch. Just how she came down on them and tore them down when not even looking at their situation at all.
Oh, and that moment when the girl was like, "Auntie told me about it," and we were talking about the death of their mother and stuff like that she's buried, and I was just like, "Oh, that is so rough."
Well, and you can imagine the aunt telling her is not going to pull punches. She's not going to be empathetic and telling her.
Yeah,
she's going to be bitter about it and just not care. So you can imagine that hurting and just hitting home. And these are formative years. I mean, 4 to 10 are very formative years for young kids. So it's, man, that would leave a mark.
Well, and it was even a deeper hit, when he found out that the aunt had told her. I think in the sense that he had been going on the whole idea that he was protecting his sister. He was he thought that, you know, she didn't know, and that, you know, that was a good thing, and then to find out that, you know, she knew and wasn't protected. I mean, that in itself, not just knowing that she, you know, probably wasn't told in a good way, but just knowing that he was trying to protect her, and actually she really wasn't protected at all. I mean, that would be just a gut punch to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's awful.
This show hurts to watch. That's for sure. At least for me, it's like if you are able to put yourself in the situation with those characters, you're just like the hopelessness and kind of the small joys, but then the long-term tragedy is really nuts to go through.
Yep.
And the small quiet moments the movie kind of emphasizes, I thought were great. It's just a really great filmmaking when it comes to like letting the story rest. I keep thinking that,
like when they first find the bomb shelter, is I think
yeah,
is a good example of that.
You know, this had a lot of those kind of quiet moments. You know, I really liked the scenes that they were showing about the time that he did get to spend with his sister before she passed. You know, I really like how they focused on the good times before it got to the really dark times. You know,
yeah,
because there for a while it felt like they were on the up and up. You know, it felt like they were being independent. It felt like they were gonna make it.
Yeah, it was almost a Boxcar Children situation. If you ever read those books or know about those books,
I don't.
You know, very idyllic. You know, kids go off into the woods to live alone, and you know, one of them kind of gets sick, but then they all get, you know, better and everything like that. So, you know, very idyllic situation. And the movie kind of, I don't know if it necessarily tricks you, but you get that hopeful impression. And I think deep down, you know, it's probably not going to end well because, you know, he died alone, starving in a
train station.
So, you know, it's not going to end well deep down, but you're hoping like, oh, maybe, you know, there is, you know, happiness and everything's going to be okay. Before, yeah, like you said, it goes down with some dark times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. But I mean, at least there were some good times, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think how did you feel about the characterization of, you know, like a 4-year-old? Like, did that work for you, or was that like, because this is, you know, these are adults that acting it and drawing it and animating it and everything, right? Like, so it's easy to get children wrong. We've seen plenty of examples of that. Do you think they did a good job?
You want to take that one first, Josh?
Sure. I think they did. I thought she was believable. I felt like she might have been a little bit more, you know, spoke a little clearer than a 4-year-old.
Did you watch a dubbed or the sub version?
I only had access to the dubbed one.
Okay. Well, then it's a voice actor. So yeah.
So in the version I saw, you know, I looked for the subtitled one, but I didn't have it available to me.
It's okay.
But in that one that they did, she did come across as a little probably more advanced in her speaking than say a 4-year-old. But the actions and the things that the little girl talked about, the behaviors.
One of the good little moments I saw was her carrying water.
Mm-hmm.
Walking super carefully and, you know, paying really close attention to that water, trying not to spill it. Like that was dead on 4-year-old behavior.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think a lot I animation and behaviors were pretty on point.
Especially with how many times she asked to go pee too. I mean, that was that was spot on, dude.
Absolutely.
Small bladders. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it sucks to be a woman and have to pee in the woods. So that would be fun.
Yeah. That's why my wife doesn't let me go camping anywhere in the woods anymore. It's always got to be at a campsite these days. She's like, I'm done with that kind of camping. I don't like to pee in the woods anymore. Okay. But when the women in your house like outnumber you, it's that's where we have a tendency to lean towards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the animation when they had the fireflies inside the mosquito net and the lighting up their faces and everything like that. I thought that was really well done. Really, really well done.
Yeah, especially, for 1989,
Yeah.
for all hand drawn, like, wow.
hmm
The way they captured light and light's movement was really well done. The fun fact: this is a lot of the same producers and animators were working concurrently on My Neighbor Totoro at the same exact time.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you can kind of see between the two some of the shared animation styles and visualizations between Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies.
That's interesting.
So
It's been so long since I've seen Totoro. I can't picture any of it. But
it's got to be hard going to work on a movie like this and be like, crap, can I please work on Totoro today? Please.
cleansing. Yeah.
I would love to be on that team.
Is Totoro a little more upbeat? I
yeah,
know the name. I just don't know what it's about.
Yeah.
There's a sick mom, but she doesn't die. She's getting better, and everything's fine in the end. Everything's great.
It's basically a Disney movie, sort of.
Yeah.
Except it's not Bambi's mom dying, that type of thing. It's
Okay.
definitely a lot.
It's a pretty happy ending.
I mean, this is in, I guess, the Studio Ghibli's movies. This one always felt like a interesting one because it was so tragic and so heavy compared to a lot of their other stuff, which they don't shy away from heavy topics. But at the same time, this one was so personal and so small scale in story, but affected by World War II.
And a lot of people wonder if it's that sentiment, the tragedy, and then, potentially taking this as anti-war, that it wasn't included as part of the Disney deal with the, not to be a part of that whole, not a merger, I don't know what I'm calling it, but it's a deal where they had, distribution rights and stuff like that. It wasn't a part of that big deal. And I wonder if in part it was because of the subject matter, and it's just so starkly different from any of a lot of Ghibli's theatrical features.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Would you show this to a young audience?
No, probably not.
Okay.
I don't know that I would show it to my little boy.
I don't think it's young as your boy. My kids, my youngest, he's 8.5. I actually don't know if I would. I don't think I would have a problem with showing this to them. My kids are a little older, so I think it shows a good kind of a balance of the things, the heartaches that come from war.
I think I've always thought it was an interesting. Like, I don't know if it's an anti-war movie. Like, it's not like wearing it on its sleeve, but for all the vast number of movies that glorify war and the heroes are killing lots of people and destroying villages and especially all this stuff that happens in these movies that ostensibly are for young boys or whatever for general audiences. It's like this movie always felt like a nice antidote to that. It's like, here is a way to empathize with the people that are affected by these large actions. I mean, not saying that World War II shouldn't have happened just to spare these lives, because these stories are so common during that time when nations war against each other. But at the same time, it's like, you need to know the cost, because if you don't, you basically grow up thinking that it's okay to shoot people. Like, it's okay to, war is a glorious thing and we should just go do it. And it's just a thing to do. It's like, this movie is like, here's an effect. It's semi-autobiographical. You really will cause this type of thing. And if you can't empathize with these people, then you don't empathize and the movie doesn't work. But if you do empathize with them and see yourself in that situation, and you can, feel the desperation there, maybe you'll be a little less hesitant to think that, war is something glorious.
It's films like this. I think we mentioned it on the last podcast, but games like This War of Mine, where you're playing refugees, in a war zone, those games and this movie, along with a few others, have gone a long way in changing how I view war, and have actually stopped me from playing like single player war games like the
Mhm.
Call of Duty series. I don't play the campaigns anymore because I don't like the glorification, even the aspects of it. I don't enjoy that anymore. I can't get into it anymore because all I can
Mhm.
think about are the actual impacts of war.
Right.
And I think that is probably one of the main, not, I don't know if it's a main purpose of this film, but I think it is and can serve as a catalyst for a change of behavior when it comes to digesting war related material.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of even adults I've met are still little boys with guns pretending to shoot each other.
Mhm.
Like they still feel that way in their discourse and how they talk about it and how they talk about it as a solution to problems. Just go over there and kill them, just go over there and blow stuff up. We can, whatever that ends up being. And it's like the lack of empathy for what happens to in those places. I'm not saying you don't, because the
Mhm.
things that Japan did and when it was aggressive before the war is just as bad, or it may even be worse in some situations um, than what was visited upon Japan itself. Possibly, I don't know. I mean, it depends on who you read, I guess.
Yeah, I
But
mean, you look at what they did to Korea, and
yeah, and China, yeah,
yep,
it's something to. But at the same time, it's like you're not visiting destruction upon the people that actually caused those things to happen, that gave the orders, that
exactly. Well,
do
and
the
and
thing.
it's not a tally. It's not a
Yeah,
we're tallying up all the bad things you did versus the bad things they did, and whoever did less is declared morally victorious. I don't.
right,
That's not how it works, or it should work.
right, right. It's
But
it's like, yeah. So I always thought there were three big moments in the movie that just really got to me. The first opening scene, and that's just because, man, that level of kind of desperation and sadness of the protagonist dying in the first couple of shots of the movie, right? I mean, name the number of movies that do that. There's not that many.
Very few.
And to have it to be a child and have him,
die of
know what he
starvation.
die of starve. Yeah. One of the
Not
worst,
not
one
a
of the
not a
worst ways to go.
gunshot, not a bullet, not anything like that. No,
Yeah.
starvation.
Not in a glorious way
No,
and
exactly.
whatsoever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And not fast. Um, and then the next one was when he's having her funeral, and uh, and he's remember, it's the camera goes back to their shelter, and it's basically memories of her and what she's done while around there, and she's playing rock paper scissors with her reflection, just to have something to do. I always thought that was a crazy interesting choice. I wonder if that was biographical, or if I wonder if that was just artistic expression, but it was always kind of poignant moment. And then that very last scene where he looks right into the camera, right at the audience, and then his eyes go off the side, and over the horizon is modern Japan. And I've always wondered what that meant. It's like you could take it a lot of different ways. I thought it might be, like, this is what we went through, and then here's what you built from it. Maybe non-judgmental, maybe judgmental. I don't know, but I always thought that was a crazy cool touch to the movie and an interesting moment.
Yeah, and I mean, man, you can't look away. And I think the empathy the characters garner from you make it so you can't look away.
Yeah.
And you've got to sit and take that scene and watch the eyes. And it hurts. It really,
Mhm.
really hurts to watch.
Yeah.
And again, this is a film like I don't think, I hope my boy watches it one day. I hope everyone gets a chance to watch it. Everyone should watch it. But I don't know that I will purposely watch this film unless, it's another one of the, a podcast, or we're doing a movie night or something like that. Cause it's one of those things that sit with you, and it's hard to sit through.
Yeah. Because it feels like everything is, you know, everything's emotionally seems like it's dialed up to 10, just because you get to see all these parts of it that happen, and the film doesn't really shy away from the hard parts. It doesn't happen behind a screen. It doesn't happen after the camera pans away. It happens right there. It is animated, so maybe you don't connect with it. Maybe if it was real actors, maybe you'd be even me more emotionally. But for me, it didn't. It was fine. The fact that it was animated doesn't make it any less of a.
I don't think
I
it took away any of it.
I think that. Sorry, if you don't mind, just to hit on your point really quick, Crit. I think they pulled an Old Yeller. If you ever watched the old black and white Old Yeller, when they shoot him, they don't pull away the camera. They don't. You see the whole thing. It's not looks at the hills and you hear a gunshot. It's nope. You get to see the whole thing happen. Mm-hmm. And I think they pulled an Old Yeller here, and you see it all. There's no magic.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead, Josh. I was just going to point out that Crit pointed out that there was a few key moments that really kind of set this movie apart for you, or you keyed in too hard. And I'll be honest with you, there's one scene that kind of if I think of this movie, it's already kind of like the thing that I keep thinking about, that I flash back to. And you guys keep talking about the funeral scene and how being that hard. That was hard. But the one part that I think I keep flashing back to that's pretty rough for me was that whole scene of him coming back when she was really sick, right before she was about to pass away, and he brings back the food, and he's so excited to have all this food for her, and he cracks open that melon for her, and gives her a piece, and she's just like, oh, it's so good, and then he just hands that to her, and she's just holding it, and just kind of like it's just sitting there doing nothing, and you just knew what was going on. I mean, that just gutted me, knowing what was happening, and then the part that kind of goes even deeper, that just totally sucker punched me, was after he says that, she had died. And then it shows that same melon on the ground, just all rotted and all the food he bought. Yeah. Like he didn't even eat it. It's just, I mean, that's intense. That just sucker punched me hard, man. And I'm not sure. I'm still trying to evaluate, all of the ramifications of that scene, of why it, I know the key points of why it affected me so much, but, I guess I'm processing that. Yeah. Because it was such a poignant scene in my mind.
Yeah. Well, the part right before that where she's the hallucination where she's trying to get him to eat the little rocks. That's hard because she's trying to help him. I mean, she's completely out of it and lost, but I mean, she's trying to help her brother, who is doing everything he can to save her. Like, that one was kind of a part that stuck out, and it was a good sucker punch too.
Yeah, I agree with that very much. And then to go right into her funeral scene of him going and having to get that the charcoal and the basket himself, and then to have to do all that without his family, without his mom and dad. I mean, just think about just the age he is and all that all that stuff he's taken upon him to have to do that. I honestly can't see myself, like we were talking about earlier, I can't see myself doing that at that age. I think I probably would have crawled in a hole and probably not come out for a while, trying not to face what the future had for me. Right. Yeah, very understandable. Head in the sand. But yeah, it's a tough film, and I think it's beautiful for what it evokes and for how it's made, and obviously what it's on screen and stuff like that. And it sure does dial down like any other drama, unless it's like of that level in your life. You're just like, look around, it's like, yeah, it's not so bad. You might think it's bad, but then you think back to, hey, those kids that starved to death. Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, that stuff happens here in the U.S. now, and that's the crazy part. Absolutely, it does. And it's horrifying.
doesn't happen on the scale that it happened in Japan post World War II, but it happens here, and that seems like in and of itself an indictment of kind of our society.
How much we have, and still there's so many people that are going hungry. Yeah.
And
What a
in some
horrible thing.
ways, it feels like society acts like the ant, or at least our society tends to act like the ant.
Okay.
It's like if we perceive that you're lazy, if we perceive that you're not working for stuff, we're not willing to help you out, and our actions in that sense cause the tragedy of it, cause the tragedy to happen later. And yeah, the pridefulness on the part of the brother didn't contribute to it. He contributed to the tragedy unknowingly, but he's also not the adult in the situation, so I don't know.
I didn't ever put two and two together with her being kind of like society, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right in the way that she perceived those kids. Society does perceive people as that. Sometimes not even giving them a chance, which she didn't even give them a chance.
Well, I mean, she thinks she gave them a chance. She felt that they were charitable to a point, but they were the cause of that family's problems from her perspective. If they just work harder or something like that, as if a 4-year-old could do that, and I don't know if the brother could have gone off and gotten another job after his school and the factory that he worked in was blown up.
I think her reaction is just having responsibility foisted on her and not wanting it.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
And doing everything you can to make it seem like to hide the fact that it's just the fact you don't want the responsibility.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
And the whole idea.
I mean, she's kind of a one-dimensional character in the movie.
Yeah, it's true.
She's a caricature, right, really, because the movie isn't about her. But still, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to make a wider point when the point is so emotionally tied to the society at the time and to the culture that it's tied to and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to draw further stuff from it.
Right. I mean, bottom line, she was a dick.
She was. Yes.
Well, and it is hard. I mean, even to kind of draw a parallel, so maybe a little closer to home. Like, I never understood sometimes, like my grandfather, and sometimes the ways that he acted. He went without a lot. Like he came up in a very, very poor home. And he went through the depression and all that stuff, and we would always kind of like, Mom, why does he do that? And what I mean by that is he used to hoard food.
Yeah.
And he would have like stockpiles of his favorite foods in his bedroom hidden. Mm-hmm. And you always knew that he liked you a lot when he would bring out one of those like stockpiles. A lot of times it was Pepsi, or a candy bar. But those were precious to him, and when he gave you those things, you absolutely knew that, that was from his stash, and that he was giving you something that was precious to him in a way because of the times that he came through. And it's really hard, it's when you say that, it's really hard to put yourself into the point of the Japanese culture of that time. Well, we're not even a part of that culture, and it's hard to put you there. And yet my grandpa is, I'm his grandson, and I still have a hard time of that time, him being American, to know what he went through and why he acted the way he did,
Yeah, I think desperation for food and shelter is something that once you've experienced it, it's basically a disease that you can't really get rid of. It's something that you have to basically manage and live with, because after that point in time, nothing feels secure. And it's crazy to watch the level of like insecurity that, the movie kind of displayed in, that type of thing.
Well, and I think they displayed that really good with the farmers, and when he was stealing, and everybody was like, "I wish I could help you, but, but
absolutely,
I can barely help myself. I'm starving too, type thing." And but it's real hard to say how why they acted this way or that, but at the same time, as long as we can empathize and maybe try to put ourselves in a situation that's maybe close, or that those feelings come through, and which they did portray him really well.
Yep. Okay, well, that's all I got, and all I kind of want to talk about, to be honest.
You want to get ratings?
Let's do the ratings, guys, and stuff. I'll start it out if you want me to.
Okay.
I will give it 7 out of 10 rice balls. And
All right.
I was gonna give it an 8, but the reason I knocked it down 1 because I wouldn't buy this movie. I liked it. And that's the problem. I was like, I want to voice that I liked it. I thought it was really, really, really well done. But it's like John was saying, do I think I will watch it again? No, I won't buy it. I probably won't watch it again, just because it is so gut wrenching.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so high quality. So I almost gave it an 8 just because of that. But since I wasn't gonna buy it, I'm like, maybe I'll knock it down a minute.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I'd watch this with my mom. I would make sure there were some massive disclaimers in the beginning and a good supply of Kleenex for her as we get to the end.
This isn't a movie you spring on somebody. You need to let them know beforehand what they're getting into and
prepare
get their
them,
consent.
Yeah, make sure they're in a good headspace. Like, are you doing okay mentally?
Right. Yeah.
This will set you back.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Okay. Well, I try to judge the films arbitrarily, always, because that's what we do. And I usually make a joke out of it to a degree, although I try to find a good place for the rating of stuff. But a movie that affects me, that could really get to me, there's a lot of movies that I enjoy watching, but enjoyment is something that almost all of these films go for. They go for a popcorn style, which is totally cool. I love movies like that too. But movies that can actually reach through and really make you feel something real, something where you want to pause and take a breath, where stuff like that. They're rare for me. So in that sense, this is a 10 out of 10 filmmaking and storytelling. It's one of the better stories put to film in how it works in the medium itself, and also how it works as a story and a narrative to the audience, at least the audience of me.
That's highly impressive, man. Highly impressive that it affected you that much.
And I'm not going to watch it every weekend. This is not, I don't do repeat watches very often, but this isn't a film. It's like, you know what? This has been an up day. I need to bring myself down a little bit. I'm going to throw in Grave of the Fireflies. It's not really that type of thing, but it is artistry, and it is so well done.
Absolutely.
Every time I watch it, it affects me, and that is important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it shows us our humanity a little bit. I mean, yeah, when they can affect you that hard and stuff like that. And this one definitely affected me as well. It was, wow, so many scenes. So I agree with what you're saying, man. I didn't score it that high, but I agree with everything you said. Thanks, guys. Those are great ratings and stuff. This was a good movie, Crip. I'm glad we watched it. Once again, another one I'd never seen before, and I did enjoy.
Well, I'm glad we could talk about it together. Now I have to there will come a hard choice for me when it comes to my pick for the documentaries, because there's a documentary that basically has the same effect on me, and it's like, do I suggest it or not?
Oh no.
Yeah. Maybe I should hold it off for some other time, or maybe I should go ahead and do it, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyway,
shall we,
Josh, we're on your picks, right?
Yeah, we are. We have a new month coming up, and since we're on a new thing where each one of us are picking a month, Crit picked this next month, and he picked the topic of documentaries, and it's me who is giving the selections this week. So, are you guys ready for my 3?
We are ready.
All right, here you go. In this documentary, your dreams will come true. Number 2, This documentary is not a waste. Number 3. This documentary will make you feel hot and steamy.
That third one is Space Jam.
Is that a documentary?
Absolutely.
Space
Absolutely
Jam? You
a
got
documentary.
Space Jam from no. So, you need me to repeat any of them?
No. What are you thinking, John?
I don't know. All three of them seem okay. So if you have what preference, I'm fine going with that.
I don't have a preference.
Let's do number 2 then.
Waste. Okay.
All right, number 1. In this documentary, Your Dreams Will Come True. This was my kind of a little bit one out there. Is Empire of Dreams about Star Wars, the making of it.
I should have known.
I love this. I've actually seen that documentary 2 or 3 times. I love it.
Yeah. All right.
And then number 3. This documentary will make you feel hot and steamy. It's called Ramen Heads. And it's a documentary about a particular a ramen restaurant in Tokyo who is trying to create and better his ramen restaurant. And I think it's really cool.
It had a very Jiro Dreams of Sushi feel to it.
Yeah. Did you see Ramen Heads already?
I made it. I was about halfway through it, and then I ended up having to leave.
Yeah,
and I just never went back and finished it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was kind of slow, but I really enjoyed that one in the sense that it's
awesome.
It just talks about how honing their craft, how much they do that. So, all right, number 2, which is the one you picked. This documentary is not a waste, and this is one I've never seen before, but it really sucked me in on what it was about and the topic. And it kind of goes along with what we were talking about here. It's called Just Eat It, a food waste story. And it's on Hulu. And it's a
Oh, my wife has seen this. She's going to love that I'm going to watch it.
And I thought I kind of find these kind of documentaries kind of interesting about how it's about how much we waste food in the United States and how we can overcome that. So anyways, that's my movie. It can be found on Hulu if you have Hulu. So
all right.
And that's my picks. I'm actually really excited about it. I almost went, instead of Empire Dreams, guys, I almost went with Flat Earthers.
Oh, yeah. Someone would have forced me to actually watch through that.
I've tried to get Crit to watch that one.
I cringed so hard. I got through the first 10 minutes and I was like, nope, I'm done.
And then, well, he'll watch it, but I have to watch Dear Zachary first.
Yeah.
And I hesitate to watch Dear Zachary.
Yeah.
So as soon as I watch that one, I can get him to watch the Flat Earther one.
I think I know which one that one is, and that one's that really hard one, isn't it? Dear Zachary.
It is definitely a hard one.
Yeah, I think you've told me about it. Anyway, I don't know if I want to watch that one.
That's why I've hesitated. I was like, is it worth getting Crit to watch the Flat Earther one?
So far, he said no.
I don't know if that's. I'm going to say that's not worth it. As much as I do enjoy the Flat Earth one, I don't think it's enough to like force it upon somebody to watch, where I would have to watch that other one. I've never seen it, but I've had it explained to me and be told about, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, guys. I look forward to next week and our month of documentaries. And to everybody out there, may you be excellent to each other and live long and prosper. From all of us here at Josh's House of Nerd. Good night.
Thanks for watching. For more nerdy awesomeness, please like and subscribe and check out our other nerdy videos.